Jadama, Director of Reforms, Orientation and Legal Affairs. I have the singular honor and privilege to do a presentation for the reasons and purposes already advanced by the Deputy Director General. I therefore take this opportunity to welcome our brothers and sisters from the media, our brothers and sisters from the Fourth Estate. For the purpose of this occasion, we are going to concentrate on one very important component of the governance reforms and restructuring, which is the security sector reforms. Since then, the service has also deliberately embarked, on reforms and restructuring, with a position of, recasting and position its standing and outlook. These efforts have enhanced the proper and effective functioning of the service. As a result, of course, as we were able to take the opportunity during our ongoing national security tour of the DG to send that message of the DG's immediate mantra when he assumed office of no more excesses. No more excesses. Of course, which means that we must go by the book. We must go by the letter and spirit of all our policy and legal and administrative frameworks, etc. Since the assumption of office by the Director General, Haji Usman Sow, of course, we have not been engaged in any arrest or detention, with a great sense of, happiness, and professional fulfillment, and pride in ourselves, because we knew that we had begun to get it right, of course, which was most welcomed and supported by members of the public. As a result, the service is now professionally and exclusively occupied with its core mandates of collecting, processing, and disseminating information on national security to the appropriate consumers of that product, which we call intelligence. As you will know, when you talk of security sector reforms or reforms in any sector, you must be guided. You must be guided vis-a-vis the policies, the legal frameworks, the regulations, etc. So this is one aspect of the reforms that we are vigorously pursuing. Of course, the most important one being the SIS draft bill. As I have earlier on alluded to, if anything, regarding our legal framework, we are still airborne, if I may put it that way. We have jumped, but we are yet to learn. We have the Decree 45, but of course, we have virtually disregarded it, because even before the advent of the NIA, luckily, we had the NSS. So there was already a culture and an emerging intelligence community in the country. So Gambians knew exactly, those in the sector, what intelligence was all about. So the DG just came and reverted and repositioned and redirected that even before we have the necessary legal frameworks by way of formulation or review or updating, we know that our core function is intelligence. Collect information, process it properly, and disseminate it to those who need to know in support of governance, policy, formulation, implementation, etc. In short, to support governance with a result to attaining sustainable national development. So it is in this light And of course, in pursuit of trying to come up with a highly professional institution, that we have embarked on these activities. Now, the SIS bill is well advanced. It was a bit delayed due to the advent of the COVID, because we had some international partners who were coming to the Gambia to help us, but because of the COVID, there was a lull. But now it is at an advanced stage, and we are very hopeful that sooner or later the Ministry of Justice will table it at the National Assembly for enactment. It is almost ready, and I can tell you that whenever you have the opportunity to see it, you will realize that it is very progressive, very, very progressive. Of course, we had a code of conduct since the days of the NSS, but of course it needs to be reviewed and brought up to date. We are also working on human resource. We had a human resource assessment exercise, which was supported by the DCAF, the Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance. And formerly, of course, it was called DCAF, Democratic Control of Armed Forces. But of course, now it's the Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance. They were very helpful in doing a human resource assessment for us. We're also working on a selection and recruitment policy. We want to get the best, for this institution, because we want to make it as professional as possible. And of course, you need to get the best so that you can get the best out of them. So hopefully, we'll be guided by that. Of course, postings and transfers policy, promotions policy, training policy, fleet policy, just to name a few. Stakeholder engagements. One of the principles, or if you like, you can call it approaches of security sector reforms, is local ownership. But we all know that local ownership is not an end in itself. We believe that with local ownership, which can be attained through stakeholder engagement, of course, you can engender or even regain public trust and confidence, public support and understanding, public cooperation, etc. It is based on these principles and outlooks that the Director General really takes the issue of stakeholder engagement very dearly. So we are therefore involved in more stakeholder engagement and facilitation of conflict prevention and management through annual nationwide tours and synergies with regional administrators, religious leaders, opinion leaders, traditional leaders, of course, women leaders, youth leaders, religious and regional administrators, community leaders, security heads at the regional level, as well as civil society organizations. This is also in line with the National Security Belt Initiative. We want to make sure that we are secured, as the belt around anything it is to secure would succeed when you fasten it. We have an improved track record, of course, of cooperation and collaboration with other governance stakeholders, processes, and commissions. The National Assembly Select Committee on Human Rights and Constitutional Matters, National Assembly Committee on Defense and Security, the Constitutional Review Committee or Commission, the TRRC. We are happily cooperating and working with all these institutions for very obvious reasons in the context of security sector improvement, security sector reforms. Of course, security sector reforms cannot go ahead successfully in the absence of oversight, effective oversight and governance of the sector. And when you talk of the oversight and governance of the sector, of course, you have critical partners like the National Assembly, civil society, opinion leaders, the stakeholders, the general public at large. Hence the need and the passion, if I may put it that way, that the DG has for stakeholder engagements. In terms of infrastructural improvements, of course, we were somewhere in 2017 when the DG and his administration took over, and it is evolving, but of course, with some degree of success. This success, of course, is being shared with our sister security outfits as well as our host communities. This is very important because one of the interests of the DG and commitment is that wherever we take you as a personnel of this service, we will be with you in terms of the wherewithal you need to be able to function effectively and professionally. Hence, the need to create the enabling environment for our staff and their partners and our host communities, wherever that may be throughout the country. If you also look at the National Security Belt Initiative that I have earlier on mentioned, you would come to realize that it sort of dovetails with this infrastructural development. You know, they are mutually complementary. You know, they support each other. You create the enabling environment for your staff, of course, with partner security institutions, as well as the host communities. And at the same time, you take the message to the people that security is everybody's business. You are not only stakeholders as Gambians, but you are also actors and very critical partners. So when you look at the National Security Belt Initiative and the infrastructural improvement, they really complement each other in terms of achieving security for the Gambia. And presently, this is what it looks like, as you were able to realize, I'm sure, when you walked in. This was the main administrative building at that end, as it was in 2017, and this is how it looks now. Of course, this was the mosque before 2017, and presently this is how it looks. And now we do our Juma prayers in-house. Of course, this is one of the buildings behind the main administrative building, and now this is how it looks. Of course, this also looked like this just as you entered the main entrance on the left. This is how it was, and that is how it looks now. Well, it may interest you to know that the lower floor, when you just pass, that's the one on the left, on the ground floor, was the infamous Bambadinka. And internally, you can see these changes, but internally it is kept intact for, of course, possible legal and other investigative matters. The TRRC was here. They looked around everything. Of course, they went in there, and internally it is kept intact how it was found since 2019. But I want to take this opportunity, of course, to shed some light on it without any attempt of trying to gainsay the fact. Yes, figuratively, metaphorically, if you call it Bambadinka, you are right. because if you enter the dinko of a bamboo, it may scratch you, it may bite you, it may even kill you. So if something like that was happening there, because it was a cell, people's human rights were being abused there, of course, figuratively, I can call it Bambadinka. But I think it's also important to note that literally, it was not a Bambadinka. There was neither a dinko nor a bamboo, for your information. Please. So this is our Brikama command at the governor's office. Our staff there, as you know, West Coast region is a vast region. So of course you will expect that our complement of staff there would be sizable. But they were all cramped into one room. But alhamdulillah, with the foresight of the DG in terms of conducive environment for the staff, this is what we have in Brikama now. This is the Fatoto Command, 2017, and presently this is how it is. Of course, some aspects of the work still ongoing. This was the Mansakonko Command, 2017, and presently this is how it looks. Janjambure looks like this, and presently this is how it looks. I want to, but anyway, carry on. Maybe later we can talk about that. That is how the Soma Command was when the DG took over, and now this is how it looks like, just next to the police station there. And of course, Yorobawol, which was inaugurated during this tour, ongoing tour, there was nothing there. And that was the northern part of the URR, where security presence was really very sparse. But this is a building where not only SIS personnel will be housed, but members of the other security services as well. Similarly, during this tour, Kirpate Command was inaugurated with offices for all other security outfits, like the immigration, the police, the GRA, you name it. And that is the Basse Command as it looks. Farafenye before, that is 2017, and presently. Of course, the training academy, as you can see presently, has evolved from a mere or ordinary training school, which was hopping from one rented property to another. But thank God, this is what we have in Banyulin now, which is known as the SIS, Center for Security Studies, General Security Studies, which is not going to be intelligence biased, but general security studies with the paradigm shift in mind of security being about human security, human-centered, and also being about sustainable economic development, so that all stakeholders and actors could converge there and discuss security from the perspective of human security and development security. That's the center we had. And of course, the one on the left was the old administrative building. At some point, the upper floor had a big hall where our people were being gathered to be trained, because there was no facility like this. So we thank God to the current management of the service. We have something that we can really boast of in terms of regional or even international standards. This was Kirpate, Yorobawol, yes, Yorobawol, the same Yorobawol when it was being inaugurated just last week. With the community leaders, we were there with the governor, as you can see, and members of the other security outfit. And this was Janjambure, which was also inaugurated during this tour. This was a tree planting exercise which took place during the inauguration of the Janjambure complex. We thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, DDG, Director of Reforms, Legal Affairs, and the legal advisor for those introductions and presentations. And may I also use this opportunity to welcome our friends, our brothers and sisters from the media fraternity, the Fourth Estate, the SIS headquarters. It's indeed a big pleasure to have you in-house this afternoon to talk about the SIS activities and reform agendas for the period under review and looking at 2017 to now. This is like the grand finale interview or media interaction that we're having today. As you are aware, we've always been having such interactions and interviews. From 2017 to date, we've flung our gates open to the media. And we cannot thank you enough for the partnership, genuine partnership in the interest of national interest and national security that we have enjoyed with the media fraternity over this period. Indeed, you are partners in national security affairs. No gainsay about that. But for the purpose of this occasion, I wish to state we are here to discuss, talk about, and report on the activities of the service vis-a-vis its reforms and restructuring agenda that it's been undertaking since 2017 to date. Because in the attempt to turn around the SIS in the new Gambia, this has been done with a view to reshaping, re-engineering, refocusing, recasting, resetting, and most importantly, repositioning the SIS as the intelligence service of the Gambia under a democratic government. This been the task we task ourselves. This was the reality that informed our reform agenda, which was also found on certain pillars, but principally 3 pillars. The reform for what? Reforms for who? Reforms to achieve what? And in that regard, we tasked ourselves on institutional, operational reforms to start with. Because certainly the operations of the service has a lot to do with how we do our business, but also how the public perceived us. So to start with, from day 1, 2017 onward, we need what we will call a horizon scanning of the country, but also of the public opinions about the SIS, the newly born SIS then, and what was the public expectation. The realization was that the public was, both home and abroad, was quite disapproving of the modus operandi of the service. In other words, how the service was doing its business, which was seen to be done with excesses, without burying our heads in the sand from day one. We said modus operandi operations now, we are entirely going to focus on our principal mandate of intelligence collection, processing, of course, analysis, and dissemination. And therefore, this will be the way we will do business. By so doing, with the realization again that the excesses were in fact not helpful to the proper functioning of the service, we came up with the mantra to cut off. We didn't only cut on, we also undertook to cut off all excesses that were associated with the service or that the service was seen to be carrying out or doing. And that's been the way we've been doing business since 2017. We've not arrested, nor have we detained anyone. We, in other words, are also not missing the handcuffs, yet we are much busier. 24 hours round the clock, this service is engaged in one kind of activity or another for the national interest and national security pursuit of this country, both at the domestic and the foreign policy or foreign engagement levels of this country. That is on the modus operandi. The other task and the other pillar on which the reforms was found on was to enhance the quality of our staff, workplace, training, capacity building, because we believed that a well-motivated staff, a well-trained staff, a well-equipped staff will deliver quality product. And this is very important because our products, if we produce anything, it's the reports we do, it's the analysis we do, it's the briefs we provide, it's the assessments we provide. For them to have the required superior quality, not just quality, intelligence must have superior quality. We have endeavored to train our staff, both home and abroad, because the quality, as I said, of the product must be produced by a quality staff. And we've had a deliberate effort and program to train our staff, talent sport bright, and the best of Gambians who fits into our reforms agenda and hire them. That's pillar 2. Pillar 3 has been our relations, both home and abroad. We realize that the intelligence service, like many other institutions, also need friends, need counterparts, need to have collaborators, cutting across all specters. Excuse me. So in this regard, our pillar 3 has been improved, has been directed to build an improved relation with stakeholders across the country and internationally as well. And must I add that, and must I also take this opportunity to thank all Gambians from all shades of life for the level of cooperation and interaction and discussions and exchanges we've had in these 4, getting to now 5 years. It's not made us a less service. Yes, we remain a secret service, but we need, and this is a well-founded realization, that if we must function as a public institution, as a credible service, we must also have our relations with the public and the stakeholders. We've not lost. If anything, we've gained much, much more in the ongoing reforms and strengthening by our stakeholder engagement. The stakeholder engagements from religious home, opinion leaders, government offices, sister security services, the National Assembly, the judiciary, the executive, the regional administration, the governors, the religious bodies, the Supreme Islamic Council, the Christian bodies in this country. The SIS has had a way of interacting and discussing and meeting and interfacing with them. For anything, this again has strengthened our operation, because the realization was that people were really running away from us. And we are a public institution. We need, in our reform agenda, to come up with a pillar that will address this, to come with a strand and an approach to address this. During the ongoing process, we've also interacted with stakeholders, processes, commissions in this country during these 4 years, actively participated, actively contributed, genuinely cooperated, and supported be it the commissions of inquiries that have happened in this country during this period, from the CRRC to the Jane Commission to the TRRC to the Human Rights Commission to the Victim Center. We've even received them here and we interacted with them. Again, all this is aimed at building confidence between this service and the people. As I said, it's a public institution, it's a public service, and our strength, if anything, also as an intelligence service, you survive on information. And the information, as the director already mentioned, is with the human beings, is with the people. And we've not become lesser service, lesser effective, or lesser efficient. If anything, our security of this country, our role and mandate has greatly improved over this period. And must I therefore thank the Gambian people and the Gambian communities from all shades of life for the level of collaboration and support that the service has enjoyed over this period, much to the benefit of national security. Similarly, over this period, we have developed, initiated, developed, consolidated in other cases, and strengthened our external relations externally, around the globe. Today, Gambia's intelligence service, thanks to the reforms agenda it set itself, the improved quality of its product, that is the reports it does, the quality and the credibility of what it does, enjoys a high standing among global intelligence organizations and other global international institutions. A case in point has been, continues to be, the SIS continues to chair the West Africa Regional Intelligence Services for the past 2 years. So we coordinate small Gambia, small SIS, thanks to the serious reforms we undertake, thanks to the level of credibility we touch wood that we've gained over this period. Our standing has earned us the respect and trust of friends and colleagues and partners from far and wide. To the extent that we've, in 2019, hosted one of the most successful regional conferences hosted by the SIS of all the West Africa Intelligence Services. And about 2 months ago, we also hosted by virtual the Regional Intelligence Services conferences. All this is speaking, in our view, and I think rightly so, that indeed the SIS trajectory is good, and overall it's gained the right traction on its reform and restructuring agenda. So that's what has informed the services reforms. That's what we've been doing over this period to strengthen the service, institutional strengthening programs, to provide required accommodation, work environment, facilities, training, home and abroad. We can count, in fact, how many staff we have trained over this period. Again, part of the motivation has been to promote staff. We have ensured that our approved annual budget workforce performs. So we don't let the vacancies stay 2-3 years on. We need to fill them. And we've deliberate, if not deliberate, informedly promote in consultation with the personnel management office, the PMO, our staff. Because this is also all that they have. This is where they spend most of their time, almost 16 hours, or most of their time in the day is spent in the offices. So they must feel at home, they must feel belonging. And in our reforms for staff, which is very, very important for us, no one is left behind. It's an all-inclusive growth. And as the director mentioned, we have committed ourselves to our staff that no matter where we send you, no matter where you find yourself, we wouldn't leave you alone. And that's very, very important, because this is a very difficult, complex job that we do, and we're mostly doing it behind the scenes. We're mostly doing it without a public report card. We're mostly doing it without saying we did this or we did that. We can't even celebrate in public the achievements that we continue to score. Therefore, the staff who dedicated their life, strength, sweat, energy to this work must also be always high on our reforms agenda. Of course, when we took over, our reforms were informed by existing challenges that we tasked ourselves to overcome, such as logistics issues, staff capacity. I've already talked about that, was low. Enthusiasm was at some point low. The level of report writing, our tool, our main stock is the level of reports we have. We are as good as the number of information we are able to collect in time, not stale. Just like you, the media, I'm sure you don't want to report on stale information. You want the fresh and actionable and timely information. So we did work to improve that, so that we are there when it happens, or we know before it happens, and give advice before it happens. This we challenge ourselves to improve and reform on. Again, this goes to feed into the reason why we thought staff motivation in our reforms was critical. Institutional strengthening was critical. This is one of the most important institutions that you find in any country. The intelligence service is an integral part of the statecraft. It's an integral part of the state. The intelligence is an underbelly of state affairs. We cannot afford not to have it right. So part of the institutional strengthening, as I said, is to have the right capacity in the service, and we've not hesitated to improve on that by training, by motivating, by promoting, by hiring talents that we think can contribute to the institutional strengthening of this service. We are of the view that if it matters to life, it matters to the intelligence service. And in other words, whether it's in the economics field, whether it's in the legal field, whether it is the political, in the economy, in the accounting, in the maritime, in the aviation, in even the weather, we said this somewhere, even the weather and the rainfall count of this country is important for the service. We want to know how a year's rainfall will be. Very important, because the rainfall, being an agricultural-based economy, feeds into our economy. If the harvest is good, the export is good. If the export is good, the GDP is good. If the GDP is good, the revenue is good. The consolidated fund is good. If the consolidated fund is good, the pays are assured. The payments of salaries that we get from the consolidated fund of the state are good. If they are not, then that can lead to a national situation matter. And that's why almost everything is of interest to us. But if we must pursue these things, observe them, monitor them, report on them, and advise on them, we need the right institutional capacity in place. And therefore, our commitment and our endeavors over these past 4 years have been directed at institutional strengthening. Today we have one of the best workforce in government. One of the best workforce in government is sitting or is working in the SIS. You name them, I think we have them. You point them out, we have them. Because the intelligence business is a very, very serious business. This is not a business for some kind of activities that don't take the state to the next level of progress and development. Everything we do is to helping the state, backstocking the state, advising the state or other consumers to get it right by the advice we give. Ours is to provide superior advice. Ours is to provide superior advice, because that's what intelligence does. None is assigned the assignment we have. None is assigned with the number of staff that we have, with the layout we have, with the deployments we have across the country, to just be focused on collecting information, analyzing it. We have dedicated staff, researchers, dedicated to just analyzing. And really, if it doesn't pass, we don't let it go. And that's the big reform we've also done. No one will call us SIS is a liar. I think no one has so far, we touch wood, to call us SIS is not credible over these past 4 years. Because we've made so our products, before they leave the headquarters, before they leave the desk of the DG, are well analyzed, well processed. All that matters is in them before the consumer receives them. Because once it leaves, the next thing is to advise a decision. That's been also a big area where we've really focused our reforms on. That is our credibility. Our credibility as a service. We have really focused on improving the quality of our advice, which is superior advice we should give to government. And we thank Allah, we thank the men and women of the service for the dedication they continue to put in that endeavor to make sure that our product, which is the advice, ultimately in the end, is the advice we give by which we are measured or assessed, has always so far passed the test. If it's a check, generally and mostly, you can take it to the bank, you will find cash. In other words, that's just an analogy. That if we give you our intelligence product or our advice or our report, it is generally as it is, or could be, or would be in coming times. We therefore have guided ourselves against any temptation to be lured into thinking that also we have the answers to all the issues or all the questions without getting all the information. Again, our credibility has been guided by the fact that we've committed ourselves to the fact that no one is going to use the SIS as his entry point or his ladder to address his own personal or individual issues. Our whole, again, we think that's very important, because if we are here to settle scores for X against Y, then our credibility and our integrity as a service would be compromised. And once it's compromised, our credibility and trust will also be compromised. So in our reforms over this period, we have committed ourselves to be entirely focused on providing the superior advice based on well-analyzed and well-intended advice before we proffer it. That's been overall the setting the stage, or doing the intro on what the SIS has been doing what our intentions has been, of course, and our aspiration to be the best intelligence service on the continent. And I think we are on track. And importantly, must I say, what we are doing over this period is sustainable intelligence reforms. We are catering, as the development persons will tell you, sustainable development is about catering for the present without compromising the future. We also are catering for the immediate needs, but really what we are more involved in is building the SIS of the future, the intelligence service of the Gambia's future. Of course, we must start from somewhere. The reforms we've therefore undertaken are strategic reforms. Strategic in the sense that the results of them, some may be seen now, but many of them is to come in many years. And they will be here long after we are gone. But we want to also commit ourselves and do the required work now so that the strategic intelligence service that every Gambian can be proud of, that every partner can respect and trust, as we've already started having, is what we've committed ourselves to be doing and now. So as I said, in so doing, we use training and capacity development as a tool to equip our staff and operatives with the relevant knowledge and skills to face and overcome multifaceted, sophisticated threats and challenges to our national security. Such trainings have contributed, and this is our assessment, to the maintenance of very high standards and capabilities to effectively and efficiently operate in a very challenged environment. And for the media, you have a critical, important role, must I say, that you have played, and we encourage that continues to be your role in national security and development. The two cannot be separated. You can't talk of development without security. You can't talk of security without development. And the media's role in that is quite important.
We will now open the floor for Q&A, and if you might have any questions, and if you could do it within the context of the presentation and the DG's remarks, you're welcome.
The question would be, how difficult was this for you, looking at the history of the NIA? You know, because you inherited a system that had all the negatives. So how difficult was it for you?
Well, thank you. It was a challenge to start with. But we also knew and accepted the challenge, that this is the task we receive, and this is also the expectation. And in view of the importance of the service, that if the service must continue or come about to support the new Gambia, we need to reform. It was difficult. It was a challenge. I was at times in the office until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, you know, in our first days in office, or the first 6 months. We hardly close. We are always here assessing the state of the service, assessing our capabilities, assessing the country, how do we need to reposition. So it was a huge challenge for us. Again, even the confidence, because for us, the public really mattered. From day one, you know, we know, and we accepted, and we absorbed it, that we are a loaded agency. We are a loaded organization, and that's not the way it should be. We should be a trusted service. We should be a credible service. So we dedicated ourselves first to accepting that this is the perception of the public about us, and that needs to change. We accepted that we are not also having it all right. And hence, like the hashtags, because you know, part of the challenge is our modus operandi. We had to change that. Focus, refocus the service. But the good thing is, most of us are also trained intelligence officers. Good officers that you need to just redirect somehow and encourage and motivate, and they'll pick the momentum or pick their pace. So yes, it was difficult at the beginning. Our mobility was weak.
We couldn't respond, our presence across the country. And we can't say we don't know. We, as a service, we touch wood. We can't say we don't know because our business is to know. But you can't know if you are not there, if you don't have your sources and your assets deployed. So yes, it was difficult, but the layout was also already there. You know, the layout was there. It was now to sit and conceptualize the challenges and come up with initiatives like the National Security Belt Initiative, which we came up after deeply thinking about how do we go on reforming and overcoming these challenges.
One more, and then we take the next question.
Finally, the renaming of NIA and the SIS, the legalities. I would rather prefer if the legal advisor or Mr. Jarama to help. What efforts are you making to see that the SIS either stays as a legal name or back to the NIA? Because we understand you were running from the name NIA, looking at the dark history of the NIA. This brought in the SIS. But again, legally, we believe there are issues. So what are you doing to make sure that the SIS is legalized and is a legal name for itself?
As you rightly, I think that's a very pertinent question. You will recall that when we talked about our institutional policies and legal as well as regulatory frameworks, the SIS draft bill was #1. And it really took us a very long time, which was also made longer by the advent of COVID. But as I said, we are almost there. It is almost ready. Maybe it's because of the stage at which we are vis-a-vis our political evolution, the elections to be precise. Maybe that is why the AG chambers and Ministry of Justice are to table it at the National Assembly. But it's almost ready. Yeah, very time anytime soon it will be tabled at the National Assembly. Yeah, we agree that it's a challenge. We have gone to fora where when we identify ourselves as SIS, of course people would say, no, you are not SIS, you are NIA, and we would admit and accept that yes, we are NIA, but then we would endeavor to explain the very good intent behind the presidential pronouncement, you know, and what ground has so far been covered with a view to making it legal. In anticipation of the draft constitution, which captures us as SIA, you know, as SIS, we were very, very happy, you know. But again, unfortunately for us, the draft constitution did not pass. So we have some options here, you know. Hopefully, like the National Assembly could, for instance, look at the Constitution, the 1997 Constitution, if it is to be with us for the foreseeable future, to look at the possibilities of amending, for instance, that provision which calls us, you know, the SIS, I mean, you know, to change it from NIA, that is in the 1997 Constitution, from NIA to SIS. That's a possibility. But if the Constitution had passed, you know, that would have been a well opportune moment for us to continue with the drafting process.
Legally speaking, we operate under Degree 45, which has been incorporated in the Constitution, recognized as a law. And according to that law, we are NIA. That's the legal name. And that is right. But it's also not wrong that we are SIS. And like he has said, it was done in good faith in anticipation of certain reforms, such as the CRC. It was anticipated that once the CRC was done, the constitution will be changed. And that constitution had already named us as SIS, has already recognized us to be SIS. And also bear in mind that the name NIA brings along a lot of trauma as far as the past is concerned, and therefore it is also, you know, a widely desirable public advocacy that this institution has a more appealing name. So it was all done within that wisdom. So legally speaking, we are referred to NIA, but as the reforms are progressing, we are SIS, and as he has said already, there are advanced developments in this light. The bill is already reviewed and is at the Ministry of Justice, and in no time it will be tabled to the National Assembly for approval. If that is not possible for one reason or the other, we can have a constitutional amendment to reflect the current name SIS. Yes.